The following program, NORML Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting NORML.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of NORML Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of NORML. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents NORML Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, NORML's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon and welcome to the show. It is Thursday, February 18th, 2010, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Welcome to our show. We're glad to have you here for 60 minutes of news and interviews by, for, and about the cannabis community. You can also check us out on our blog, stash.normal.org, and you can follow me on Twitter at Radical Russ. And joining us in our virtual studio all the way up in Astoria, Oregon, my good friend and half sister, Cannabis Carrie.
Hey, Russ, another beautiful day in the Pacific Northwest.
I know, the sun is shining once again. This is what we call the February tease out here in the Pacific Northwest. It gets to be about 60 degrees out here, nice and sunny. And then next week, we'll go through another 3 months of rain and 45 degrees, I'm sure. We really can't complain, though, compared to our friends out there on the East Coast, buried under, feet of snow. But it's one of our things up here in the Northwest. Carrie brings us our news right after our first break from CannabisFantastic.com. Carrie, what are we looking forward to for today's headlines?
Well, today we're going to talk a little bit more about those clinical trials that were released yesterday that Paul and Dr. Mitch covered on. There's a lot more discussion that we need to have about those. We're going to go to Minnesota to look at a farming bill in a non-medical marijuana state, and we're also going to travel to Arizona. It looks like the lawmakers are getting their ducks in a row down there in preparation for what might be some new medical marijuana laws.
All right, that's great to hear. We'll be back with Carrie later on in the show to discuss all of this on the news. Plus, in our news segment today, we've got a dose of reefer madness from Lodi, Ohio. This was brought to my attention by our Ohio NORML chapter. The mayor there in Lodi doesn't seem to like NORML's free speech that much, so we'll talk about that. I also wanted to remind folks that if you are a veteran who served our country and you experienced post-traumatic stress disorder, Dr. Mitch Earlywine has a survey for veterans who use cannabis to treat the disorder to get more information. To get the link for the survey and more information about the survey, just email Dr. Mitch at 420research@gmail.com for the link and more information. Also, wanted to let folks know about the HempCon that is taking place in California tomorrow in Los Angeles. No, I'm sorry, it may not be in L.A. I got to get the exact location. It might be in one of the other cities around L.A. But we're going to be talking to them from their press conference tonight at 5 o'clock Pacific time, and we'll have the recording of that for you tomorrow on our show to get you some information about the HempCon with a possibility of 2 very special guests joining us. I'm going to keep it secret for now because sometimes I announce these very, very special guests and things don't work out and I feel bad about it. So let's just say we'll have 2 very special surprise guests from HempCon on tomorrow's show. Also coming up on today's show, it is Groovin' Thursday, so we will get to our Groovin' Thursday tune with John Doe and John Doe Radio. He's got a tune from OPM today. We visit our Southern California scene with Terry Joyce. She'll be visiting with January Thomas and American Hemptress. And we'll speak to Dr. Rito Hill from the Berkeley Clinic, plus Melissa Milam, the former director of New Mexico, of their medical marijuana program. She'll be on the show as well to talk medical marijuana in Vermont now. We'll be right back after these messages.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hello, I'm Paul Stanford from the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF. Medical marijuana is legal in 13 states today, and THCF has clinics in 8 of those states. Our doctors help qualified patients obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in their state. Patients are eligible for medical marijuana with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms such as multiple sclerosis or asthma, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and gastrointestinal disorders like IBS or Crohn's disease. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, our doctors will help you obtain a permit for medical marijuana. THCF Medical Clinics has offices in Washington State, Oregon, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Nevada, Montana, and now Michigan. Call 1-800-723-0188 or go to the web at hemp.org or 1-800-723-0188.
Look, when I was a kid, I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
Remember, Mr. President, you once were just one bust away from being Barry the drug criminal.
Life ain't a box of chocolates gum. That's why people smoke weed and take bumps and drink way too damn much and get drunk and do it all over again first of the month.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carrie.
Associated with multiple sclerosis and also pain caused by neurological injuries or illness. The 24-page report submitted on Wednesday to the California legislature has boasted rigorous research protocols and is expected to show up in peer-reviewed science journals this year. The California state research effort, led by John Vasconcelos, a former senator of the state, said that it should take all the mystery out of the does it work question. He was the leader in creating the 10-year-old Center for Medical Marijuana Research at UC San Diego. The California legislature established the research center in 2000 to examine whether the therapeutic claims of medical cannabis advocates could withstand scientific scrutiny. Studies on muscle spasms and pain associated with spinal cord injuries and AIDS are being looked at, as well as funded research on how marijuana affects sleep and driving, limb pain due to diabetes, migraines, facial pain, and whether inhaling vaporized cannabis is as effective as smoking it, the easiest and most popular way for patients to medicate. Igor Grant, the director of the research, said obtaining some of the only federally allowed cannabis from Mississippi and meeting the complex security regulations required by the DEA and other federal agencies was time-consuming and cumbersome. Sadly, California Senator Mark Leno, who chairs a budget subcommittee on health and human services and is a supporter of medical marijuana, says that there will probably be no more financial support of the center due to California's ongoing budget crisis.
Well, it's good news that this made it through anyway and got funded by California, twice, 1999 and 2003. We discussed this with Paul Armentano yesterday on the show as well. And I just wanted to point out something about the reporting on this story, right? I mean, this was great news that we finally have a clinical trial using human subjects that show that neuropathic pain and spasticity are well treated by smoked cannabis. Now, this goes along with the AMA in 2009, in November there, coming out and revising their guidelines. And the American Medical Association says now that smoked cannabis does have effect as medicine, right? So great news, right? We trumpet this at the top of our website at NORML with a headline that says the gold standard of scientific trials show that medical marijuana is effective. Even smoked medical marijuana is effective. I want to point out something from the Sacramento Bee, and I've got this up on the Stash blog at stash.norml.org. When they reported on this study, they don't report about it being the first human clinical trials to show that smoked cannabis is effective. Their headline says that researchers find you don't need to smoke, that you don't need to have the high in marijuana to treat the pain medically, right? And this has to do with, in the trials, how they were looking at the lower THC potency strains that they were giving to these patients, and found that they still got pain relief even though the THC potency wasn't as high as some of the medicinal marijuana strains that you'll find in the California dispensaries. We're going to talk a whole lot about this on Monday with NORML's Deputy Director, Paul Armentano. We're going to go behind that headline and take a look at the incorrect framing from the Sacramento Bee, as well as the entire issue of the study itself and whether or not it really actually said that.
The Minnesota Independent is reporting about a bipartisan bill that was introduced in the Minnesota House on Monday and is aimed at farmers in the state who would like to grow cannabis for export to states where it is legal for medicinal use. Minnesota's Governor Tim Pawlenty vetoed an effort to legalize medical marijuana last year, but this bill is not seeking to legalize medical marijuana. The bill, called the Medical Marijuana Production and Export Act, is sponsored by Democrat Representatives Phyllis Cann, Tom Rukavina, Tom Huntley, Frank Hornstein, and Al Junke, and Republican Representative Jim Abler. The bill's purpose is to strengthen the state's economy and its agricultural sectors by development of regulated medical marijuana production and export industry, all while maintaining strict control of marijuana. On Tuesday, the bill made its way to the Committee of Agricultural, Rural Economics, and Veterans Affairs. We will keep you updated on any progress of this new attempt for a non-medical state to participate in the medical marijuana industry.
What a strange bill that is after medical marijuana fails in Minnesota. Now, it didn't fail because Minnesotans aren't behind medical marijuana. There's overwhelming support, overwhelming majority support in Minnesota amongst the populace for medical marijuana. The Senate and the legislature passed medical marijuana, only to be vetoed by one man, Governor Tim Pawlenty. But, wow, a bill that would let you grow medical marijuana in your state that's not a medical marijuana state and export it to other states that are medical marijuana states. Boy, that's just a real slap in the face to the patients in the state of Minnesota. Yeah, we won't give you medical marijuana, but we'll be glad to grow it for Californians and Coloradans and Oregonians and Michiganders and so on. Well, I hope the bill passes, I guess, but I just rather like to see Minnesota have medical marijuana or legalized medical marijuana.
I thought you'd like that one.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, the Senate Finance Committee of Arizona approved legislation that says if voters approve a medical marijuana law in November, any cannabis sold will be subject to the state's 5.6% sales tax. Now, it passed on a 4-3 margin in committee and now will proceed to the full Senate. Senate Bill 1222 was written by Senator Jorge Garcia of Tucson, and he said he supports any legislation that would allow those with a written certification from a doctor to obtain marijuana. Currently, prescriptions are exempt from all taxes. Garcia and Andrew Myers, who is campaign manager for the initiative, thinks it will give voters another reason to vote for legalizing medical marijuana come November by making it clear that enacting the medical cannabis law is not only the right thing to do for patients that could benefit, but it will also help pay for social services. Looks like they are getting their ducks all in a row.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on this one. First of all, Arizona has medical marijuana. They have a medical marijuana law since 1996. The problem with it is it says that if a doctor prescribes marijuana, blah, 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 and the word prescribe, well, that brings in federal officials. Prescriptions are something that are controlled by the DEA and give doctors the right to prescribe controlled substances. That's controlled by the DEA, and they have said that if you prescribe marijuana, they'll take away your license to prescribe anything else. And that's why Arizona's law hasn't been in operation since 1996 when it was voted in. But this idea that we want to tax people's medicine, we want to put a sales tax on their medicine. Well, look, it's either medicine or it's not, right? And in Arizona, they've got that rule that says they don't tax prescriptions. They don't tax medicines. And I kind of agree with that. I don't think we should necessarily be taxing people's medicines. I can understand taxing their luxury goods or taxing the things they buy, that they don't really need. But when people need medicine to live, I've got kind of a moral issue with taxing that. That said, if we are going to be taxing medicines and we're going to tax marijuana, I don't necessarily see that as a reason to go against this sort of this law. If it's something that helps to convince people that we need to legalize marijuana overall, perhaps we can set up a scenario where we tax the medical marijuana in the interim, and then we work toward full legalization. And once we have full legalization, we tax the consumers, but not the patients. It's something that we'll pay attention to.
Marijuana is an addictive drug which produces in its users insanity, criminality, and death.
Marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind.
If the hideous monster Frankenstein came face to face with the monster of marijuana, he would drop dead from fright.
Well, it's been a little while since we got a dose of reefer madness, but today one came into my inbox from Ohio NORML, and it involves a letter to the editor to the paper in Lodi, Ohio, where Ohio NORML is based, and the mayor there, who has some terrible things to say about the Ohio NORML chapter there. Now, this Ohio NORML chapter has been tabling in the city square, kind of a park, open downtown sort of area, and we got a recording here of the mayor reading the letter to the editor through our exclusive technology here at NORML Show Live. So this is the mayor of Lodi, Ohio, and his opinions on Ohio NORML.
Ohio should not legalize marijuana. On the opinion page of the February 4th Gazette, reference is made to Ohio's ill and legalized cannabis. Cannabis is marijuana, and its recreational use is illegal in the United States, while its medical use remains a controversial issue worldwide. Ohio should not legalize marijuana or promote its use, and Medina County entities, its chambers of commerce, and civic organizations should not support those that want to.
Okay, so that's the mayor, Dan Goodrow of Lodi, Ohio, coming right out in the paper and telling businesses they shouldn't support NORML. They shouldn't allow them to have meetings in their pizza parlors. They shouldn't support them in any way. That's an interesting way to treat free speech, Mr. Mayor.
Over the past decade, Medina County has experienced countless drug-related crimes, and hundreds of pounds of marijuana have been seized. Drug use is a drain on our already depressed economy, and local law enforcement resources have been overwhelmed by the workload associated with investigations and dealing with the ancillary crimes that drug use spawns.
But Mayor Goodrow, those are exactly the reasons why Ohio NORML likes to exercise its free speech in the public square. Ohio NORML's dedicated to educating their fellow citizens about how marijuana prohibition creates crime, requires investigations, and keeps an entire industry and its jobs underground rather than helping that depressed economy.
Do not delude yourselves into thinking that only the poor, uneducated, and homeless are using illicit drugs or promoting their use.
What? Oh, you mean that productive, educated people in our neighborhoods use cannabis too? Oh no!
An establishment on the square in Lodi, known as Ohio NORML, for example, appears innocent enough, but its message is directly counter to work being done by responsible parents, law enforcement agencies, schools, the Medina County Drug Abuse Commission, the Drug and Alcohol Resistance Education Program, and efforts by Lodi police to eradicate a long history of drug problems. This establishment is part of a highly organized group continuously promoting a consistent message.
Well, that's the nicest compliment you could pay one of our NORML chapters. Not only are we organized and consistent, but our small nonprofit is effectively competing with the anti-cannabis propaganda of the entire educational system and all law enforcement agencies and their commissions and outreach? Well, thank you very much.
One of the greatest problems I have with this establishment is its proximity to our children. Lodi's Central Park and downtown should be considered a safe haven for kids, an area where they can gather and not be within 1,000 feet where drug problems exist per drug-free school zone standards. This is not to say that drug problems do in fact exist at this establishment, but by their own admission, their intent is to promote the use of marijuana. Dan Goodrow, Mayor of Lodi.
Mr. Mayor, you didn't just threaten the free speech rights of a NORML chapter and insinuate that they're criminals intent on seducing children to use drugs, did you? What's next? No reggae bands in the park and downtown? A ban on tie-dye t-shirts for the good of the children? Mayor Goodrow, NORML's intent is not to promote the use of marijuana any more than NARAL's intent is to promote abortions or the NRA's intent is to promote shooting people. Our intent is to reform marijuana laws because the prohibition of cannabis harms our children. Those children you're so worried about in the Lodi downtown, they can't get beer from the downtown Lodi sellers because those sellers check IDs, unlike the marijuana sellers in Lodi's downtown. We don't promote cannabis use. We support the rights of adults who happen to choose cannabis, and we understand that it's not for everyone. But for the people who do enjoy it, there's no reason they deserve to be locked up. We got to take a short break. If you'd like to catch that entire email, check out the Stash blog at stash.normal.org, and we'll be right back after this special break.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support NORML Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
Law420.com. Hello, I'm Russ Belville, Outreach Coordinator for NORML. In my job, I read literally hundreds of headlines each month involving nonviolent, productive citizens whose lives are ripped apart by a marijuana or drug arrest. Many citizens could avoid arrest by refusing police searches and remaining silent, but police are well trained to confuse and intimidate. That's why you have a right to speak to an attorney before answering any police questions. I hope you never need to exercise that right, but if you do, make your first call to the law offices of John C. Lucy IV. John Lucy is an accomplished criminal defense attorney with expertise in Oregon's medical marijuana law. John Lucy understands and respects cannabis and drug consumers of all backgrounds. Call John C. Lucy IV at 503-227-6000 or visit in downtown Portland. Address available at law420.com. That's John C. Lucy IV at 503-227-6000 or visit law420.com today.
Hi, this is Alan St. Pierre, Executive Director of NORML. We are the oldest, largest, and best-known marijuana law reform organization in America, and it's all because of your support. Take some time to join NORML at www.norml.org. Your membership supports this podcast, our websites, our policy research and analysis, and our annual conferences. Changing marijuana laws is a grassroots effort, and it starts with you, the stakeholder. Join NORML today and add your voice to the millions of cannabis consumers who demand equality with our beer-drinking friends.
It's time for your Daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420-friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Our PodSafe music is donated by freedom-loving musicians who support our goal of ending adult marijuana prohibition. Today we bring you tunes for Groovin' Thursday, our salute to all the dopest beats and killer rhymes that we find in the best of rap, hip-hop, soul, R&B, and funk. Brought to you by the John Doe Radio Show, accurate and informative marijuana reform news and entertainment. Available on the THC Media Network and JohnDoeRadio.com. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on NORML Show Live, send it to us at stash@normal.org. Now, here's some great independent marijuana music for today's
JohnDoeRadio.com.
The habitual use of marijuana as an escape from life's problems and responsibilities leads to the deterioration of many bright and promising young people.
John Doe from JohnDoeRadio.com. Check out our weekly podcast. Tons of great information and news, specifically about the Mile High State, Colorado. Since we're here located in Colorado, we bring you tons of great information and analyze everything that's happening here in the Mile High State. Bringing you your Groovin' Thursday tune. If you haven't heard of the Southern California group named OPM, you just might need to download a few tracks and satisfy yourself with a few grooves. Their awesome sound. Many of you have heard the tune Heaven is a Half Pint. I must admit I was not a huge fan of the tune at the time it came out, but being the debut single from the band, I gave them a chance and quickly enjoyed most of the other tracks I heard. As I settled into my stoner ways, I became even more aware of the great music surrounding us and our awesome subculture, and OPM quickly made their way to the front of many of my playlists. This tune has been the assisted source and enjoyable kickoff to many a laid-back smoke session. Originally signed to Atlantic Records, OPM is now at home with Suburban Noise and has released 3 albums with the label. OPM specializes in many forms of music, including reggae, hip-hop, and rock mixes, a hybrid brew. Big B, another sub-noise rapper, joins the group on many singles and is an integral part of the band. Johnny Necro from the Cottonmouth Kings, also a member of OPM, which, by the way, stands for Open People's Minds. Take an open mind, relax, light up that J maybe, enjoy this tune. Expect to hear more from OPM on NORML Live. I'm John Doe. See ya.
Cause we're high than a motherfucker, and we don't even know what we're saying. We don't know. Cause we're high than a motherfucker, and we don't even know what we're saying. We don't know.
Hanging around, puffing law all day and running a gamut. I'll smoke it, I'll snort it, hell, I'll fucking slam it. I'm high on shit from like other planets. If I was the priest, I'd be the priest that goddamn it can't stand it. I'm losing my mind, I'm going blind, I broke my spine. I'm drinking turpentine combined with melamine. No wait, I'm fine, really, no really. The pills got me silly, for really chilly willy like this, that, and this and that. I don't know how to talk, I don't know how to act. Haven't bathed in several days, don't know my name, I can't explain anything on my brain, certified insane. So wait, why am I on, or what the fuck? Tell me what's going on, what's wrong? Am I inside this song? Am I gone? Tripping so hard, I'm Jack Tripper. Oh shit, there's the Big Dipper. My face is melting as I'm looking in the mirror. Must close my eyes, build the wall and see clearer.
You know, marijuana. I never did drugs before I met OPM. My life was simple. Everything was great. Check it, last night I got loaded with this leprechaun. Didn't bring no bagpipes, only brought a big bong. Call me crazy, call me what you will. I got the ill style and I still keep it real. Cause Black Mahoney, well he's no good. Chop him up for killing wood. And if I don't burn, then there's a story to be learned. Everybody step up or wait your turn. Cause we's about to get lifted off the good shit. Lollipop, 1, 2, 1, 2, and it just don't stop. And everybody's provided, the herb get divided throughout the party, so everybody can feel like this, y'all. Just close your eyes and make a wish, y'all. Inhale, exhale. tell. They make you feel so well as my body goes numb from the alcohol and pills. Cause we're high than a motherfucker, and we don't even know what we're saying. We don't know. Cause we're high than a motherfucker, and we don't even know what we're saying. We don't know. Cause we're high than a motherfucker, and we don't even know what we're saying. We don't know. Cause we're high than a motherfucker, and we don't even know what we're saying. We don't know.
Bouncing off the walls like a pinball on a mix of drugs and alcohol. Pills have me going down, but the ropes, they brought me up with a cup of JD, weed and token on a blunt. Can't see the color of my eyes cause my pupils are huge. I'm sniffing crazy glue, sucking on a nice balloon. I'm going crazy, dude, I hope these shrooms wear off soon. Nah, fuck it, I'll just eat a couple volumes. So wasted that my speech and vision is impaired. Doing somersaults down the beach in my underwears. People stop and stare, but I don't really care who's peeping. Pulled out my dick and on myself, I started peeing. I was higher than a motherfucker, and I didn't give a fuck. I'm doing swan dives and backs of garbage trucks. Now I'm just playing, I just made up all that shit. It's amazing what you think of after 99 grits.
Cause we're higher than a motherfucker, and we don't even know what we're saying. We don't know. Cause we're higher than a motherfucker, and we don't even know what we're saying. We don't know. Cause we're higher than a motherfucker, and we don't even know what we're saying. We don't know. Cause we're higher than a motherfucker, and we don't even know what we're saying. We don't know.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my 17-inch long original Gandalf from Starfish Designs nearby. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527. Weed.
That's Hooey Valley, hooey-ha.
Weed.
Where any office boy or young mechanic.
Now it's time for a report from the epicenter of American cannabis culture with our Southern California correspondent. You know her from ComedyNation.com and her appearance as a finalist on Season 1 of NBC's Last Comic Standing. It's our friend, cannabis comedian and marijuana activist, the lovely and talented Terry Joyce.
Hello, Terry. It's Radical Russ. How you doing today?
I am doing great.
Oh.
I love our theme song.
The Hooray for Hollyweed?
So yeah, the weather. I do. I'm like Hollyweed. Yeah. Okay. We have a great show today. I'm really excited about what's going on here in Southern California. First of all, we have the HempCon Festival happening,
yes.
Which January Thomas and I, we're part of American Hemptress. We're going to be attending and filming and passing out flyers for our new American Hemptress show, and also advertising our sponsor, the Berkeley Clinic, which is here in Hollywood.
Right
and they have something really, really interesting happening right now.
Yeah.
They're opening up an urgent care facility as well as doing medical marijuana recommendations.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
And he is our guest today.
Oh,
isn't that great?
Well, this is a party going on. So you got January on the line as well?
I have January Thomas, the lovely and talented and funny. There she is.
Hi, January.
And we also have Dr. Hill.
Hello.
Is Dr. Hill still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Dr. Hill, welcome to the show.
I can hear you, Dr. Hill.
And that's January Thomas also on the line here. We've got kind of a conference call going on here. So, Dr. Hill, you work with the Berkeley Clinic in L.A. there, and Terry was just telling us how you're looking to provide more care for patients. Tell folks what sort of care you're going to be offering now.
Well, we'll be offering general walk-in services. We don't have an X-ray facility yet, so short of that, we can deal with a whole lot. I mean, lacerations, abscesses, coughs, colds, sprains. I mean, the problem is here in Hollywood, there's so many uninsured folks. People who have jobs that are just uninsured. If you go to the ER, of course, you're going to wait for 4 or 5 hours and then end up getting billed about $2,000 or $3,000. So it's just we set up kind of like a restaurant as much as we can get it that way. You can come in and there'll be a menu of services. You'll know exactly how much everything costs before you get inside, and just to make it easier for everybody.
Do you feel like this move is something that more clinics should be trying to undertake as far as trying to add the medical legitimacy to the whole dispensary market?
Yeah, there are too many little small clinics that have opened around here that they're like an assembly line. You come in, you spend 2 minutes talking to some person, and okay, now you're qualified here, see you in a year. And it really does take away from the legitimacy of the whole thing, because there are a lot of people out there with very legitimate reasons for using marijuana, and just it doesn't look good. And then, of course, you have somebody from the LA Times or some other paper that goes into one of these places, and then they publish it as if this is what it's like out there.
Right.
And you're going to go into this place, and they're going to look at you, and they're not going to touch you or ask you any questions, and just write your recommendation and push you out the door.
Right.
And so it looks bad.
Yeah. Now, recently we've been doing a lot of stories from LA with regard to the city council there trying to come up with new regulations that would affect the dispensaries. How would these regulations affect Berkeley Clinic, if at all?
As far as the dispensaries, of course, they're going to have to. They'll tighten down on the dispensaries and they'll close them down. We have several dispensaries that are around us, and it might affect us in that if some of these get closed down, then there'll be less places or there won't be as many places around here that we can kind of get patients from. But none of the rules or regulations that they're putting on the dispensaries will actually affect us directly, maybe indirectly in that way. Soon, I'm sure the medical board will put out its own little set of rules and send out investigators to kind of look around everywhere to make sure places are legitimate. And at that point, then they'll do something to make have some changes in the way that patients are evaluated for medical marijuana.
All right. Well, we're speaking with Dr. Rito Hill.
What happens with the LA City Council,
Clinic.
how they're going to go about actually trying to close down these places. It should be very interesting.
Yes. I'm sorry to talk over you there. I just wanted to remind folks that are just tuning in. We're listening to Dr. Rito Hill from the Berkeley Clinic in Hollywood. And Dr. Hill, I was wondering if medical marijuana is something that you had always been aware of as a physician, or is this something that you're relatively new, a new experience for you in your practice since post-215?
Relatively new, because it's not something that they teach in medical school. We're not going to sit down and give you a course in medical marijuana the same way I guess they perceive it the same way as sitting down and giving you a course in heroin. It's not going to happen. So not until I came out and actually started speaking, or came out of school and went into residency and started speaking to more patients that came through the emergency rooms where I was trained. And you'd ask people here and there what drugs they use, and a lot of them said marijuana, but then they'd follow that with, well, I use it for X, Y, or Z. Mm-hmm. And, it's interesting, the different things that people use it for, and I had never heard that before. And I see more people using marijuana for the same reasons.
Right.
And the older people with arthritis, the younger people with anxiety, or different psychiatric illnesses. And I started reading about it and just being a little more aware of what it's used for. And again, it's not something that would be taught.
Yeah, and it's not as if we see a whole bunch of people coming in saying that they're using crack for their insomnia, or that's something to point out. Now, Dr.
it might cause it, but
yeah, really. Now, Dr. Hill, Terry mentioned.
I did have a problem recently.
Go ahead.
What's that?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Russ. No, you go ahead.
Oh, okay. I
was just saying that I had to get stitches in an emergency room recently, and the doctors, when I expressed that I smoked medical marijuana, were very judgmental, and they wouldn't give me Vicodin for my stitches or my pain or anything because I mentioned I was a medical marijuana patient. Did you find that, Dr. Hill, when you were in emergency rooms, people being biased against people that used it as medication?
I think it doesn't. It's not even perceived as a medication by a lot of physicians. Once they hear or once we hear that you're using marijuana, the whole medical part just gets thrown out the window. So okay, that's just one illicit drug that you're using. You're a drug user. Maybe I won't give you anything that you might get hooked on because clearly you're already using drugs, and I don't want to further any of your issues. So it kind of works that way. Because it's just the whole perception of marijuana as being not medicinal, but a drug of recreation.
Right, and that's something that we've been faced in all the medical marijuana states ever since California passed Prop 215. Dr. Hill, at the beginning of the segment, Terry mentioned their show American Hemptress and how they're going out to HempCon, and the Berkeley Clinic is one of your sponsors. Is this something that you feel very strongly about, sponsoring different marijuana reform organizations, and how does that conflict, if at all, with the stance on medical marijuana? Is there a problem trying to fight for legalization while you're still trying to defend medical marijuana?
I don't think so. See, I can defend medical marijuana in many different ways, and at the same time still feel that it should be legal. Because so many reasons why I can think that it should be legal, or why it shouldn't be illegal. More than that. But for now, it is illegal. And so, it's kind of putting a concentration on the medical aspect of it, or the medical reasons why people need to use it. But, at the same time, I grew up in Northern California, very free. Everybody used it all the time when I grew up. It's just kind of the way things were. But I don't think there's a conflict there between evaluating people for use for medical purposes, which is the way it is, and then still feeling that it should be legalized at the same time. So, right now we have to work with what we're working with, but not necessarily. It's not to say that it should be that way.
Okay. Now, speaking of the American Hemptress show,
let me properly regulated.
I'm sorry. Let me go back to January for a second here. This is kind of a new show you guys have put together, and so January, I was wondering if you could tell folks what they could expect when they see the American Hemptress show.
Well, it's always Terry Joyce and myself, and we book other hemptresses or hempsters to come perform comedy with us about how we're activists or the role that marijuana has played in our lives. And it depends on the show. We are doing a huge fundraiser on Wednesday, March 3rd at Fado Do. It's in Los Angeles at La Brea near the 10 freeway. And that show is a big benefit for Blue Iris for trying to raise money. She was a medical marijuana activist and a comic, and she needs a headstone. So that night it's a whole event. And that night we actually have bands coming out and playing and raffles. But that's not our typical show. Normally it's just like, stand-up comedy with some sketches and multimedia things mixed in, and we talk about our perspective and point of view about weed.
All right. Well, from a female perspective, right?
I'm doing material about the raid. My experience with the raid and the federal police, and I think all of us have our own story. That's beyond like just telling jokes about, hey, isn't it cute to be high? Not to say that that doesn't always work or it's not wonderful, but I think it's time to expand beyond that level and really start to incorporate how marijuana does affect us. And we are women in this society, and I think a lot of times the female voice of being a marijuana smoker or using marijuana for health reasons or for whatever is not really completely heard yet. And I think that I bet January and I and perhaps some other ladies too can bring that perspective as well.
No, we certainly hope so. And Dr. Hill, are you going to be out at this HempCon this weekend?
I will be there.
Okay. Have you ever experienced one of these hemp rallies before?
I've never been to one this size before.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see who's out there, what they're talking about, and what's going on in the community.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be very interesting. Let's get some contact information out there for people that are in the Hollywood area and would like to get in touch with the Berkeley Clinic. Dr. Hill, can you tell folks how they could do that?
Sure. You can either give us a call at 323-848-4650, or we are at 6430 Selma Avenue. Hollywood 90028, is kind of right in the center of Hollywood, or email us at info@berkeleyMedGroup.com.
I'll
get back to you right away, no matter how you get a hold of us.
Info@berkeleyMedGroup.com?
Exactly.
All right. And for January and Terry, the American Hemptress Show, do you have any contact or website information for that?
We have our email, which is americanhemptress@yahoo.com, and our newly created Facebook fan page for American Hemptress. So I believe if you go, just to Facebook, you type in American Hemptress, we should come up. Yes.
All right. And
newly created fan page.
Yeah. And Terry, do you happen to have
an awesome logo too?
An awesome logo. I've seen the logo. It's very nice. I didn't get the time to put it up on our show today, but we'll have it up the next time we have you on. Terry, do you happen to have the link for the HempCon available?
I don't, but I could get that. We could get that to you.
Okay, we'll get that posted up. I'm sure someone in our chat room will have it as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Terry Joyce always joins us every other Thursday in our Southern California scene. She brings us great guests from the cannabis business industry there in Los Angeles, as well as comedians, musicians, and other activists involved in fighting for our American heritage. Thank you so much, Terry, and January, and Dr. Hill. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Russ.
Thank you.
All right. When we come back, we are going to be visiting with Melissa Milam. She was the program director for medical marijuana in the state of New Mexico and has just recently testified for expansion of medical marijuana in the state of Vermont. This is NORML Show Live. I'm Radical Russ. We're right back.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hello, this is Webb Hubble. Life insurance is now available for responsible marijuana smokers. For years, responsible marijuana smokers have not been able to access affordable life insurance products. NORML uniquely supports cannabis consumers. 2 carriers have already agreed to offer all of their traditional life insurance products at all levels without excluding individuals who smoke marijuana responsibly. Help NORML and help yourself. If you've been declined for life insurance, are paying above market premiums, or simply want to know what now may be available in the way of insurance for marijuana smokers, contact me at info@mclaughlinonline.com or simply call me at 202-293-5566.
NORML Show Live reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while and share. This is NORML Show Live.
'Cause the day was hard and your work was long and you need a break from all that's wrong. You better look at the clock 'cause it's 4:19. Time to reach in that pocket for your bag of green and smoke that weed. Smoke that weed. Smoke that weed. Smoke that weed.
Welcome back to the show. It is 48 after the hour, and we're working on getting Melissa Milam on the line, so hang tight.
NORML stands for Reforming America's Prohibitionist Marijuana Laws, and that cannot happen without directly engaging our government and elected officials. Local NORML chapters and other affiliated activists relentlessly lobby our lawmakers for change we can believe in and report on their strategies and progress in this segment we call our Government at Work.
All right, report from our chatters in the chat room here at live.normal.org on the upcoming HempCon. You can get more information on that at hempcon.com. Way too easy, right? hempcon.com, taking place this weekend. And again, a reminder, they're having a press conference tonight at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and I'm going to be calling in and getting some recordings there with the head of Beverly Hills NORML, Cheryl Schumann, and Fred Rhodes as well. And plus, we may have another couple of very special guests joining us on the call. I'm going to keep secret who they are, but you'll know who they are. You'll recognize their names very, very readily. But I'm just not going to say who they are because I can't guarantee it. And I don't want to say anything until we're sure, but we may have 2 very special guests coming up. Cannabis Carry is working on getting Melissa Milam on the line. She's up in Vermont right at the moment. Melissa Milam was the head of the New Mexico Medical Marijuana Program since its inception in 2007. She was involved in running that program up until mid-2009 and retired from that program in mid-2009 2009 and has most recently been testifying for medical marijuana expansion in the state of Vermont. Melissa Milam, welcome to NORML Show Live.
Hi, thank you.
We're so glad to have you here, and I was just kind of informing folks a little bit about your background.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could tell folks about how you got involved with New Mexico's medical marijuana program.
Sure. Well, when I was 16, we moved from Nashville, Tennessee to Amarillo, which made Tennessee seem like a progressive wonderland. And I spent a lot of time in Santa Fe. We went out there whenever we could. So fast forward, many years later, I worked at the Drug Policy Alliance in New York City in their media department. And they have the Drug Policy Alliance has an office in New Mexico. They sent me to New Mexico to do the press for the medical marijuana bill back before it was passed, which is the easiest job in the world. You know, marijuana is front page, top story, no matter what you do.
Sure.
And that eventually led to the passage of the bill. The Lynn & Aaron Compassionate Use Act became law in July 2007. And when I heard that the Department of Health for the state of New Mexico hadn't found anyone to run the program, I called them and said, you need me to run the program. And they interviewed me and they agreed. So.
Oh, fantastic. Well, this is an interesting situation in the state of New Mexico because at the time when they passed their medical marijuana, Governor Richardson was signing it into law, so it was one of those acts that actually made it through a legislature rather than a citizen initiative. And he was the first...
Correct. I'm sure a lot of your listeners know, sorry to interrupt, but a lot of your listeners know and some might not know. Some states have ballot initiatives where the voters can actually go to the polls. Some states do not have that. They have to actually push it through a state legislature, which is, I feel, much more difficult than getting it, to the voters.
Well,
we had to go the legislative route.
Right. And so what I wanted to know is when Governor Richardson signed that bill, it made big news because it was the first time that a governor had signed a bill that actually authorized dispensaries, the dispensing of medical marijuana. Can you tell us about the trials and tribulations of the dispensary operations in New Mexico?
Sure. Well, one giant problem is New Mexico is the 5th largest state in America land-wise, but it's one of the least populated states. Mm-hmm. So right off the bat, you have a huge state with 2 million people spread everywhere. So, trying to figure out how the state licensed producers are going to get cannabis so far across the state has definitely been a problem, especially with federal checkpoints down near Las Cruces area, when you get further close to Mexico. So that's been a big problem. And New Mexico put a 95 plant limit. That 95 is the maximum number of plants that a producer can have in any stage of growth. Not 95 seedlings and 95 mature plants. It's 95 total.
Right.
And unless you have a magical producer, it could be very difficult to get, more than a couple of ounces per plant. Mm-hmm. So the Department of Health is faced with, oh no, we're going to have a lot more producers than originally anticipated. Right now they're saying they're going to need probably one producer for every 100 patients that they have. Now, the 95 plant limit is in the regulations. It is not in the actual law. So it would be a lot easier to change that 95 number since it's regulatory and not statutory.
Right. Okay. We're speaking with Melissa Milam. She was the former coordinator of New Mexico's Department of Medical Marijuana and recently testified in Vermont. We'll get to that in a moment. I wanted to ask you one more question about New Mexico. You briefly mentioned those border checkpoints run by the United States Customs and Border Enforcement. This is something that has come up in my discussions with people who are living in Southern California as well as Southern New Mexico. Can you describe that a little bit to our audience and why that's such an intrusion of of the feds over the states?
Well, any state that is near Mexico has federal border checkpoints. A, for immigration, and B, because of the drug war. So if you're a medical marijuana patient who is traveling, let's say you live in Las Cruces, you're a legal patient, and you want to go visit relatives in Santa Fe, if you take the fastest route on the highway, you're going to encounter a federal checkpoint. So you could either A, face going to jail by the feds, for medicine that is legal in the state, even though you're in the state that you live in, or B, you could take a much longer route and try to avoid the checkpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've been told that the head federal agent for this particular checkpoint in Las Cruces has said that they will leave licensed New Mexico medical marijuana patients alone, but, that's just hearsay.
Yeah. How far away from the border is Las Cruces?
Let me think.
But it's not.
I'd say an hour.
Yeah, it's not a border town.
More,
yeah, it's not a border town where it's sitting right on the Mexican border, though. It's 60, 70 miles away.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
If not more. Okay. It may be 100. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the discussion on Vermont here. You're most recently in Vermont testifying. What was your testimony about up in Vermont?
Well, I was not in Vermont. I was actually trapped in D.C. because of that blizzard, so they were nice enough to let me do it over the phone. My testimony was, Vermont's had a medical marijuana law for many years, but they didn't have any kind of production facilities. Mm-hmm. So I just tried to stress to this particular committee how important it is to have safe access for patients, and that it's very important I feel it's important from the perspective of the state to issue regulations sooner rather than later, because in California and Colorado, they kind of left regulations up to the local, the city, county governments, and they didn't do anything until there were, say, 200, some odd dispensaries in Los Angeles or in Denver, and maybe they need 200, but it has caused some issues for the local government. So my testimony to Vermont was, A, I commend you for going this route. From a patient's health perspective, it's very important to have dispensaries, I feel, versus than only allowing caregivers. For example, my grandmother, she does not live in a medical marijuana state, but she has cancer. And my grandmother is, 80-something. The chances of her, A, finding a caregiver, are slim to none, and then B, the kind of interaction she would have with them, I would feel much more comfortable if my grandmother could go to a state-licensed facility and purchase her medicine there, much like she goes to Walgreens, and gets her medication there. I have nothing against caregivers, just I would rather my grandmother go to a state-licensed place versus somebody's house.
Yeah. Well, we thank you so much for your testimony for Vermont and what you've done in New Mexico to help patients there. We need more people like you, Melissa. We really appreciate you being on the show today. And
thank you.
If we can talk to you again sometime on a future show, we'd love to have you back on the show.
Absolutely. And very quickly, if anybody has any questions, my email address is my first name and my last name, one word, at gmail.com. MelissaMilam@gmail.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions that your listeners have.
All right. We'll put that up in the chat room so people can get a look at that. Thank you, Melissa Milam. That's MELISSAMILAM. We'll get that up in the chat room as well. And we'll be back tomorrow with more news and interviews you can use for the cannabis community. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
of the earth.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it on one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.
You have a bunch of questions, and I want to have them answered immediately.